Lowe's knows what makes SpringFest savings even better are member-only doorbuster deals. Right now, rewards members can save $40 on an Allen & Roth Chesler Gold faucet. Was $99, now $59. Plus, save $110 on a Cobalt 40-volt battery trimmer and blower combo kit. Was $279, now $169. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 3/24 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
And when we talk about releasing stress, it's understanding the root cause instead of just saying, oh, I'm stressed today, so I'm going to go to my habit of overeating or my addiction of choice or my picking a fight with someone. We all have these habits that are our go-to kind of chronic responses. And this is allowing us to go deeper and really embrace a healing modality of a lifestyle of I can be healthier and happier, and I choose that daily or nightly.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 666 with guest Shannon Kaiser. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. I am interrupting our regularly scheduled program of the Coming Home series to bring you this interview that I did with Shannon Kaiser. A mini-sode would normally come here, so I am replacing it with this interview. Shannon Kaiser is one of those people who I feel such a kindred connection with, and part of it is just because her energy is transformative. Being in her presence is transformative. And so the next best thing you can get is her teaching, is her energy through her teaching. So she's a friend of the podcast at this point, and she has a new bedtime book out, which we're going to talk about, which Lord knows we can all use a little bit of help with sleep these days, right? I also want to remind you that How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, the coaching program, is coming out. So if you want to be the first to know about it, head on over to andreaowen.com/habits. I'm also probably going to do a free workshop leading up to that. So you'll hear about it if you sign up over there, andreaowen.com/habits. And before we get into it, let me tell you a little bit about Shannon for those of you that are new to her. Shannon Kaiser is a world-renowned spiritual and self-love teacher, speaker, and acclaimed empowerment coach, best-selling author of 6 books on the psychology of happiness and fulfillment, including The Self-Love Experiment, named number 1 of the 20 self-love books that will lift you up by Oprah Magazine, and the designer and creator of 2 other oracle decks and 2 mantra decks. She guides people to awaken and align to their true selves so they can live their highest potential. So without further ado, here is Shannon. Shannon Kaiser, welcome back.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Thanks.
So if you've been on this podcast more than twice, you are an official friend of the podcast. So you are an official friend of the podcast.
And a big friend to you too.
I love this so much. And just how Shannon and I know each other, we share a literary agent and have met each other. We met each other the weekend that COVID was hitting. It was that first weekend of March 2020.
In New York.
In New York. We were in Manhattan, and everybody was like, what is this thing? We're not supposed to shake hands, and we're hugging and having lunch.
We wear masks. What do we do?
It was
before we
It
knew
was before
the
bottom really dropped out, but it feels like that was just last year. We're a little bit on happier terms, at least. We're not on the onset of the pandemic, just a hostile government takeover. But anyway, that's not here what we came to talk about.
I'm so glad I got to hug you in person, though. Then it was so great to meet you and officially solidify our relationship, because we've known each other online, and it's just great. So yeah, I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, it is great. And so the new book is 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras. And I know that your work has sort of encompassed spirituality, and through that way and like finding joy and things like that, you help people really reduce their stress and anxiety. So what inspired you to focus the topic on this particular book? Like what was the impetus?
Yeah, it's so interesting because, yeah, a lot of my work is grounded in spirituality and personal development. I wrote a book called Find Your Happy Daily Mantras back in 2012. I
Mhm.
self-published it for my clients, and then it got picked up to be co-published and produced in a larger, it was always my goal to kind of make it larger. And it really became a bestseller working with Beyond Words. So a couple years ago, they came to me and they said, we have a book proposal for you. And they actually pitched the book to me. Of all the people on the planet, we really want you to write Happy Bedtime Mantras because we're in a sleep epidemic, especially after the pandemic. So many people are having insomnia, sleepless nights, snoring, all kinds of things that keep them up at night to sleep apnea. Little did they know, I sat there on the call saying, I have to write this book because about, a year ago, I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea,
Oh
and I've been
no.
really looking at, and they had not known when they were talking to me on this call a couple years ago that I had already been living and breathing lifestyle changes to help me sleep better and reduce my cortisol and help my mental health be better. And so I was implemented mantras and I implemented lifestyle changes for a nightly routine. And I was literally living it, sharing it with my clients. So it was actually really beautiful to write a book about it. I said,
Yeah.
yes, I'll write it. And it's a beautiful process now that it's coming out in the world because it's a daily devotional guide to help you feel better instantly.
I love stories that point to the universe flirting with people.
Yes, that was
That's
a
what I call
moment.
it. Like they
I,
wink, they flirt, they flip their
yeah.
hair.
It's exactly what it was. I was sitting there and I just had that moment where I was like, the universe it really does look out for us. And more importantly, you have people on your team. Sometimes I think as writers, it feels very isolating.
Mhm.
We're doing our work, we have our clients, but you don't really know what's out there. And to have like a team behind you and want to support you is also really, really a beautiful part of the process.
Yeah. And not just, and I'm talking about like, and I'm sure you were too, like spiritual, not just people, book publishers or our followers on Substack or whatever. It's the spiritual team as well. Whether they're sleep experts or stress experts, they talk about managing your stress and you talk about releasing stress. So can you talk about what the difference and like why that distinction matters?
I think it's important because I learned firsthand that we're all kind of in a chronic stress state, whether it's
Yeah.
looking out into the world and feeling totally hopeless with what's happening culturally, politically, historically, even,
Mhm.
but what's happening in our own households. And there's a lot of different stresses. There's environmental stress, physical stress, emotional stress, and even spiritual stress and psychological stress. And I address all of those in this book. And I really addressed all those in my life. And when we talk about releasing stress, it's understanding the root cause instead of just saying, oh, I'm stressed today, so I'm going to go to my habit of overeating or my addiction of choice or my picking a fight with someone. We all have these habits that are our go-to kind of chronic responses. And this is allowing us to go deeper and really embrace a healing modality of a lifestyle of I can be healthier and happier, and I choose that daily or nightly.
What do you see when you work with someone one on one? Is there a pattern that you see is kind of the or patterns that you see as the culprit in terms of them getting better sleep?
It's such a good question because I've seen this shift in my coaching clients as well. I have one-on-one practice, like you. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because in the beginning, a lot of times people come to me saying, I want to be happier
Mhm.
or I want healthier relationships. But then we will look at their sleep or we will look at their habits. And it always comes back to the habits. And sometimes we're doing things right up to before we go to bed and we don't prioritize the
Mhm.
sleep. And so looking at sleep the same way we look at our physical health or even our diet,
Yeah.
we have to. We are asleep and for a huge majority of our life. And so I've seen shifts by implementing nightly rituals.
Yeah.
And I think it's really fun in the practice of in working one-on-one or even in my retreats. I do self-love retreats and we have little me matter moments where you start
Mhm.
to
That's
celebrate
cute.
yourself more. And it's anything from depending on what we're working. So for example, what we're working on, I have a client who's really wanting to focus on self-love. They're very critical of themselves. I know I lived through this as well. One of the things I started to do was be able to look at myself in the mirror and say nice things about yourself instead of criticizing yourself, whether you're aging or whether you see a new wrinkle. Instead, focus on the positive. And so one of the activities, even in the book, or I had a coaching client do this, recently, where I said, just look in the mirror for 2 minutes and honor yourself. Don't say anything unnecessarily kind, like be kind to yourself. And we reported back the next session and they really said, oh my gosh, my judgment's starting to go away. I'm not judging other people as much. I'm not judging myself. Therefore, I'm sleeping better. I don't wake up in the night thinking, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed by all the things. I'm actually more present and peaceful. So little things like that. It's really about the little easy steps that we can take
to add up. I heard the term sleep hygiene several years ago, and that shifted something for me because I was like, oh my gosh, I had never heard of it. Because, we talk about, we have a routine for keeping our teeth in our mouth, like.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, your dental hygiene, right?
Right. Your dental hygiene or your body hygiene, like even like when we have our periods and stuff, like we have special things that we do in order to make ourselves feel good and take care of ourselves. And when I started looking at it like that shifted for me in terms of my sleep. So I have found, and as someone who's, we're recording this at the end of February, I'm going to be 50 in April, and I'm definitely in perimenopause, and my sleep it's kind of bounced around a little bit. I go through stages where it's a non-issue, and then I go through stages where it's a major issue. What I have found to be consistently helpful is just what you talked about, is the simple things like having a routine, and it doesn't have to be anything really formal or long. It's just that like my body knows what's next. My body and my brain know what is coming next. And then it's like, okay, when we close our eyes and we're pretending to sleep, we actually fall asleep. That's
exactly it. It's exactly it. And, to your point, I was in the bookstore, Barnes & Noble, a couple weeks ago, and it really struck and hit me. There's a whole section on sleep health now, a whole section, books, resources, affirmation decks, things that we never even would have considered even just a couple years ago. It wasn't even it was a need, but it wasn't being addressed. And I really think that the way the culture has shifted, we're recognizing it is more than just hygiene. It's a necessary focus of our overall health. There's been so many studies done. Over 70% of adults report waking up in the middle of the night, which affects, your day. 42% of adults feel tired by noon. A lot of people have to have naps, right? And it just goes on and on. I mean, if you think about it, the real culprit, what I learned in my own research personally and professionally, and talking to sleep experts as well for the book is, over 54% of adults report stress and anxiety is the number one reason they can't fall asleep. We're just so bombarded in the mind. And to your point, when you focus on a routine or a ritual, similar to just brushing your teeth, you're going to do that before bed. If you start to add in a few other routines before bed, it signals to your brain, I am safe. My central nervous system can relax. And it's because our routine creates consistency, and that consistency lets you know I'm safe. I can relax. And it's a good process.
Yeah, you mentioned the nervous system. I have found that to be quite the ruler of everything.
So much so. The fight, flee, freeze response, all of the things we focus on in therapy, they get addressed also. I think what's really interesting in our dream state, it is so important we allow ourselves to get a deep quality sleep. It's not just about sleep, it's the quality. When we go into a dream state, that's not only allowing your subconscious to start to work on different aspects of you, but our body goes into that full rehabilitation stage of relaxing, resting, your cells get rejuvenated. And so that's also when our central nervous system can be like, I'm calm. So there's certain things we can do right before bed. You've heard I think a lot of us have heard the sleep experts talk about keeping it dark in there, keeping it a little bit cooler in your bedroom. These are kind of important things, but I like to go even further to think about what's important to you. If you really care about a loved one, you can, before you go to bed, send them kind thoughts or reach out and say, I love you before bed. And it's kind of like bringing in, our relationships really affect us too. And so a lot of the processes in the book talk about healthy relationship with yourself and loved ones. And everything I do is about self-love. It's about you honoring yourself, knowing your worth and value. So that comes into us falling asleep, feeling more peaceful in our own body.
Will you take a quick ad break? And when we get back, I want to ask you about like the high achievers and their anxiety, because I know a lot of them are listening. So we'll be right back. I want to take a minute to talk about something I've struggled with, my relationship with food and my body. In my 20s, I battled an eating disorder for years, and finding the right treatment was frustrating. One of the biggest barriers was that insurance wouldn't cover it just because I was still having my period. I had to navigate so much of it on my own, and I don't want that for anyone else. Eating disorders are so common, yet we don't talk about them enough. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Equip, a virtual evidence-based eating disorder treatment program that helps you recover at home. No putting your life on hold, whether it's work, family, or the things that bring you joy. Equip gives you a full care team, a therapist, dietitian, medical provider, and even a mentor who's been through recovery. They treat people of all ages, all types of eating disorders, and best of all, is covered by insurance and has no wait list. If you or someone you love is struggling, don't wait. You deserve help. Get a free consultation with Equip today because healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. Visit equip.health/noise to learn more about Equip's virtual accessible eating disorder treatment. That's equip.health/noise. Let's talk about perimenopause and menopause. If you've been feeling like your body's betraying you, you're not alone and you don't have to suffer through it. That's where MIDI Health comes in. MIDI connects you with expert clinicians who actually understand women's midlife health. There's no guesswork, no dismissing your symptoms, just real science-backed solutions to help you feel like yourself again. They treat things like hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness and libido changes, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, and more. Booking a virtual visit is fast and easy. There are no membership fees, no hidden costs, just specialized care covered by major insurance providers. And if you're out of network or uninsured, there are affordable cash options too. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Okay. I tend to attract, it's interesting that the episodes, anytime the word anxiety is in the title of an episode, they tend to get, I see an uptick of downloads, which tells me something.
Yep.
And I know that there's a lot of high achievers that struggle with like hidden anxiety. So these are people who very much, for face value, on the surface seem great or fine at worst. So how can they recognize that their anxiety or maybe even that their sleep is a problem and begin to heal from that? Like, is there anything like you want specific advice for them?
I relate to this as well. And a lot of the times I see in my practice, a lot of times we are perfectionists and sometimes we don't even realize that we're perfectionists because we are such high achievers. And so what we can really look at is, and what I found is there's a root cause underneath that. And it's usually a driver that is keeping us in that constant state of needing to prove, needing to succeed, needing to do. What I mean by a driver is it's a belief, a limiting belief that's actually kind of hindering us. And it goes back to the core wounds. We've talked about this before in some of our other conversations, the core wound of I'm not good enough, or I need to prove myself, or I'm unlovable. When we really allow ourselves to sit in a space of silence for just a little bit, even if it's, and there was a time in my life where I was like, I can't do that. I don't even know how to relax. For high achievers specifically, if you can give yourself 30 seconds, 60 seconds, up to 5 minutes a day where you just sit with yourself, you will start to see a shift in how you're approaching the high achieving activities that you're doing, but you'll also start to come back to self. And you'll realize that thing you're trying to chase is outside of you, but what it really is needed inside. So inside of you, when we're talking about high achieving and anxiety, most often these are the people who aren't sleeping well. They're taking the pills or the things to help them sleep. So what we can start to do is implement more of a routine earlier in the day. As soon as you wake up, it actually affects how you go to sleep. And so one of the things that I realized I was getting I was actually re-diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I started to look to new tools. And that's when I found companies like Mind Bloom and stuff like that, and started to implement more rituals. My anxiety went down in tremendously and just disappeared when I started to think about how am I starting my day. And I added more sunlight, getting sunlight in the morning. I started to go straight into nature right away with my dog, nature, drink more water right away. Things that we know. And this,
but we think we're
know.
the exception.
Yeah, right. It's like you
I
and
do.
you hear about it. Yeah, and that's the thing. We think we're the exception, and it's like, oh, everyone else, can fare. It's one of these things where we start to implement it, and you see things change. I started to realize in my own journey that I didn't have to work so hard. That shift allowed me to relax into each moment, and then therefore sleep better. And my cortisol went down. My severe sleep apnea started to digress, and all the
When you
things.
say like you didn't need to work so hard, what do you mean by that?
I was working really hard. So for a high achiever, we're working. And what that means is we're often working to get to a goal. And then we realize we hit that goal, but we keep working and we don't even stop.
I gotcha. Like on to the next thing so quickly.
On to the next thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I mean by working so hard is I started to recognize the journey is really where the reward is. Writing that book instead of waiting for it to be released, or, the constant looking to the next thing disappeared because I realized that the high achieving aspect was a pressure point to keep me from being present. And now that I'm present, I have more ability to really enjoy life, and the anxiety goes away because you're not focused on what might be the future.
I love this so much. I love that this book points to something that, so I feel for the sake of sounding like esoteric, or maybe I am. I can do that now that I'm almost 50. I'm going to claim that.
Amen. Claim it. Yes.
But I'm doing this podcast series as we're recording this called Coming Home to Yourself. And it's like these 10 life lesson episodes. Like as I'm entering, turning 50, I truly feel like Chiron, the planet, is returning for me. And I'm just more open to learning the lessons and accepting them. And your work points to several of those things. And I want to ask you about your ketamine experience before we're done. But also just around, I think that I personally have vastly underestimated the importance of sleep for our healing, healing our nervous system, for healing our bodies, for healing our minds, for healing our broken hearts. Like, absolutely. That's the part. Like I think it might have been an EMDR therapist tell me about the brain science and like what happens when we sleep, and how like our brain is like filing away these memories, like things that happened during the day. And even and this is like where trauma comes from. And this is a very rudimentary explanation, you guys. Like even the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's like when trauma happens, and PTSD is from the brain's inability to be able to file away these memories, these experiences in a place where they become less impactful to our nervous system. And that's where PTSD comes from. And so I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like sleep.
Yeah. You have nailed it. Just from personal experience, I'll share too. This is, while writing this book, it's interesting. I know you know this. We have to live what we're writing, and it kind of comes back. And as I was going through a couple edits of the book, wanted to really didn't understand fully until I recognized that sleep, I think what happens is when we're going on a healing journey, for whatever it may be, there is a process where your body needs to kind of shut down so you can heal.
Yeah.
And in that space, what happens, especially for the high achievers, is there's a guilt that comes from that, or I should be doing this, or why am I sleeping so much? I'm not as productive. But when we can surrender fully into that, everything changes. And I know from personal experience, I was overcoming a really traumatic relationship, and there was a lot of abuse, emotional abuse tied into this toxic tendency. But it was really profound for me because as soon as I cut it off and went no contact, I found myself sleeping 12 to 18 hours a day. And it was just so interesting because the universe cleared my schedule, like coaching clients rescheduled for later in the week. And I was not going to guilt. I knew that it was something I needed because not only what I had been through was such a cognitive reality, I had to refocus, but there were parts of me that were kind of putting themselves back together. My inner child was healing. All the work I was doing in therapy with my trauma therapist was kind of implementing, and I allowed it and embraced it. I even had my family being like, you're off grid. Like, where have you been the last month? And I'm like, I'm healing. I'm good.
Sleeping.
It was me and my dog. Like I'd take my dog out to walk. I'd hang out in nature, come back and sleep, drink a lot of water. It was the most profound awakening of my life. And I healed so much. Not only did I allow myself to heal parts of me that were wounded from my inner child, and it all happened in the sleep state. And I allowed it and implemented. Another thing I did, I journaled through the process. I really started to talk to my spirit guides more. I started to pray more. I started to really say, Shannon, why do you keep being in these situations? And being kind to myself to say, I never want to get into that situation again. And that's where the sleep comes in. So allowing ourselves to sleep and recognize in our healing journey, breakup, a divorce, even going through a disease diagnosis, this is your body talking to you.
Yeah.
And I allowed my body to become my best friend.
Yeah.
I'm a plus size woman, and I used to struggle with that my whole life. I've just had bigger bones, and I was like, this is not a world that embraces that, more so now. But it was a shift in saying, no, I love this. I love my body and what my body does for me.
You give the best hugs.
Thank you. Oh, I love it. I remember hugging you when I first saw you we were on the New York in Manhattan. You were getting out of the taxi. I'm like, it's you. I ran over and I remember.
Know. Oh
Thank
my
you.
God. Like I get
big teddy
emotional
bear.
just thinking about it. Like oh my gosh, my larger body female friends, like give me all the hugs. Like it just
so much love. It's
so
like a big
soft
cuddle.
and warm, and like it's my everything. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Thank you.
Gimme a squish off.
We all need more hugs, right? More energetic love. But I think to that
Yeah.
point, it's healing. And when we heal ourselves, we can help to heal others just by being in that healed space. It's not like you're trying to heal others, but man, my relationships are so much healthier now. I am so much more kind to myself and others. And it's just a beautiful process, all because I allowed myself to sleep literally up to 18 hours on some days when I needed it and not judge it.
Energetically, it can really change everything. It's interesting. So my godmother, who's since passed away, she was my great aunt, and her name was Sister Noel. And she was a Catholic nun who relocated from Los Angeles. My grandmother and all of her siblings, including Sister Noel, were born and raised in Los Angeles. And she ended up in British Columbia, Canada. I don't know that story, but she was, the legend is that she tells that she was part of this group of nuns who, I don't know what they did, but they created a new rule or law in the Canadian Catholic Church where they were allowed to wear their recreation clothes when they weren't, I guess, working or something. Like they could not wear their habit. I love that story about her. She was like a renegade nun, I guess, apparently. But we went on a trip one time and to Canada to see her. My mom tells the story that my mom wanted to get me up. And I was 9 when we took this trip. My mom wanted to get me up early so they could go and do stuff. And Sister Noel would stop her and said, just let her sleep. She needs it. And I never forgot that because I've always been a sleeper. Like I will sleep in, even as a kid in the summer, like when kids were getting up at like 7 a.m. and Andrea slept till like 8:30.
Oh, so amazing. You're like,
I've
I
always
need
been
sleep.
that way. And I've always felt wrong and bad and lazy for it. And especially as like a Gen X kid, it's like we were called lazy forever. So to have this woman, like this wise woman who was, who was a nun, like to me, she had all the right answers.
Yes.
It was okay to sleep in. Like that changed everything for me. And I just think that we need it sometimes. Like let her sleep. Let her sleep.
Absolutely. And I call it seasons of our soul. We have different seasons, just like nature. There are times where you'll be really motivated and have the energy. And there are other times where sleep is absolutely necessary. To that point, I feel like collectively we go through seasons of the humanity soul, which means there's more dormant seasons where we need to pull back from the world and allow ourselves to hibernate. And it doesn't always coincide with the season of winter. It is about recognizing what's going on out in the world is often a reflection of our internal state. That's Course in Miracles. But also what I've learned, if I'm constantly trying to change things on the outside without allowing myself rest, rejuvenation, what am I doing to make sure that I'm releasing stress? Then it's a futile point. It's wasted energy. So I have to look at that balance. It really does help.
Well, which actually brings me to the question around, because I know that depression has been a part of your story. And I'm assuming that you attract clients also that is a part of their story as well. So how do you work with someone and sort of distinguish what is okay for them to, because I'm assuming there's people listening to this who also have depression and who sleep a lot and it's their depression. So what are your words of wisdom around that?
I'm so glad you asked that, because while we were talking about sleeping as healing, and I was thinking about that real big group of people who maybe are sleeping to avoid life. Not
Sure.
saying that when we're depressed, that's what happened, but there is a lot of times. That's why I say seasons of the soul. First of all, I really believe we are not our diagnoses. And so detaching from thinking that I'm going to be depressed for the rest of my life. The first time I was diagnosed with clinical depression was when I was in corporate, and it was a depression on a spiritual sense because I wasn't following my heart. I was in advertising and I knew I wanted to be a writer. And as soon as I left corporate, that depression disappeared. Well, several years later, when I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea, my cortisol was through the roof. It
Mm.
was a chemical imbalance in my body. So that depression was very much needing to be regulated on a lifestyle, looking at factors. I went on medication for a little bit to allow myself to stabilize. The most important thing is to not put guilt on ourselves. I think women, especially, we just focus so much on, I should be doing this, or that person over there's, they look healed, or we see people online.
Yeah.
Like, I don't post online that I took medicine for a little while. We can't ever assume that we know. We have to allow ourselves to go inward. So I think it's important to recognize there is no wrong. Within my own clients, I have a lot of people who do come to me with extreme anxiety, extreme depression, wanting to change careers. Funny enough, we think that's what we're starting with, but they always come in, and what I do in my books and everything comes back to authentic alignment. That's it. That's why I'm on earth. I help people peel back the layers that are blocking them from living their truth. So the anxiety often fades very fast because we're not actually focusing on it. We're bringing back the heart of who this person is. And that's how I've healed myself multiple times. That's how I've been to go on multiple metamorphosis journeys. And we've seen this, both and I have talked about this. So I think when we stop letting ourselves think that we're in a box,
Mhm.
and this is my forever state, and recognize we are always changing and shedding and growing, most of us, when we choose, everyone
Yeah.
listening, most likely, that's where the profound breakthroughs happen. And it's a beautiful life. It's a beautiful journey, even when you're feeling desperate and depressed.
Thank you for that, and for acknowledging the people out there listening who are in that place in their lives, and sometimes I've had circumstantial depression, and I've had more of a clinical depression, and they both suck and can bring on feelings of guilt and shame and things like that. So I appreciate you saying that. I'm curious about when you were answering that, and you talked about going through these evolutions, and you and I have been online now long enough, like more than a decade, where we've reached, we've kind of been brought to our knees. Like, I can't say for you, but it's been multiple times now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I don't even know what my question is, but I think it's more so of like, what is helpful for you when
Yeah.
you find, especially as a public person, when you find yourself like in that, like, oh shit, I'm here again. And I'm speaking to anybody who's in self or in personal growth, who has the self-awareness to know. And my question, sorry, I have a long way of asking it, but it's
No, it's
like
perfect.
when you get to that place again, and you have already been there before, and know the tools to help yourself and to heal, do you speak to yourself or look at the perspective differently than you would have maybe even like 5-10 years ago?
Every single person on the planet goes through this in their life.
Multiple times.
Absolutely. And I think to think that we're just going to have one spiritual awakening or one ego death or one rock bottom is a disservice to us. And so starting there is the most important. To quick answer, yes. I think I read something online the other day. It said, how do you know when you're growing? And it is how you feel on the inside. The truth is, I handle it very differently now on the inside first, but I don't always go straight to the tools. Like, oh, I know meditation works, or I know that this mantra, that is actually spiritual bypassing, I believe. I think what we have to do is meet ourselves where we are, no matter what. And we are growing. We do have more awareness, more tools, and that's how you know you might not be in this as long and you can bounce out, so to speak. But the only way to go through this process is to go deep into it. And I say deep into it is because you have to go into it and not around it. And so not looking at the situation that you're in comparison to what you went through before, and not looking at it as in like where, and even if you go to your future self, it can sometimes do a disservice if you're not allowing yourself to fully be in what you're in and asking, what does this have? Amy Shearer, I was talking to her the other day, and she's like, she's had to heal herself from different diagnoses too, asking, what does this have to offer me? in going into it, instead of thinking life is happening to you again, and really looking at the lessons and saying, okay, well, I'm here for a reason that I might not know right now. What can I do right now? Maybe it is sleep. Maybe it is call a new therapist. Maybe it's, go no contact with about 80% of the people which is what I did. And I'm laughing now because it's a lonely journey when everything all of a sudden turns upside down. And I went through that. And the number one thing that got me through was not blaming myself or saying, I'm a teacher of this stuff. I write books on this, not going there, but saying I'm here for a reason. And now it has transformed what I'm writing about, my teaching, my coaching, my retreats. It's a whole different level. And I had to go there in order to be able to help teach and share for others. So to anyone listening, if you're in it, don't judge yourself. Just be in it. Go through in it by saying, what does this offer to me? And if you don't know, just say, that's okay. What can I do right now?
What is the next best right step? I think it's Glennon Doyle that says that.
Yeah. And inspired action, I like to say. It's hard to feel inspired when your world's falling apart. It's kind of like the tarot card, the tower. It's like tower after tower. You think you're making a step. To me, something that we are missing in the conversation too is your spiritual helpers. We have this benevolent force around us, whether, angels, higher power, God, universe, Allah, whatever you want to call it. To you, whatever is personal for you, there is something greater than yourself that is around you, helping you, and tapping into that, honoring that has saved my life.
Wow. Thank you. We're going to take one more ad break, and when we come back, I would love for you to share with people how ketamine has helped you with your depression and anxiety. So we'll be right back, everybody.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Okay, we're back. And
so good to be back.
I hadn't planned on asking you this. This was not on my list of questions to ask you. But before we started recording, you shared me that you also have worked with Mind Bloom, and I've shared with people my experience. I am so behind on doing psychedelic therapy episodes. I did a couple of them on a special podcast series, and I know you guys. I'm editing my 4th book. It's coming out in December. It's coming. But I would love to, because I had a profound healing experience, like profound. And I want to, for people that are just hearing about this, I want to say this. Here's now my belief about personal growth in general. There is not one thing or one healer that's going to quote unquote fix you, that is the solution, that is the answer to all your prayers. I think all of it matters. And I also think that there are some things and maybe certain therapists or guides that will move the needle a little bit more than the others. And all of the other stuff is helpful, but it's just, it's a spectrum, like anything. And there's been a few things that have been fundamentally like life-changing, like learning about negative self-talk and like learning how to speak more kindly to myself. That values work has been another. Shame resilience has been another one. Psychedelic therapy has been another one. Moved the needle so much for me in my healing. And I also think it came to me at the perfect time after I had left my marriage and I was, in my late 40s. And I would love for you to tell us, like, what made you decide, like, I think psychedelic therapy is next on my list, and how did it help you?
That's profound. I heard your podcast too, with Mind Bloom and ketamine, and I loved that podcast. So that actually led me over to Mind Bloom itself, which is such a profound experience. So what brought me to kind of psychedelic therapy? I actually started several years ago, I'd say about 8 years ago. I was very much into, I had a lot of friends talking about ayahuasca. You just kind of hear stuff. And I have other things, MDMA and mushrooms, and kind of for psychedelic purposes. I've been on such a healing journey, and mental health is so important to me that I was curious. I'm a very curious person. So I've done different therapies, and they've all been very helpful and profound at their own rate and in that moment. But something happens, and it's happened on my journey, where I would get to a point, and I guess it's about integration. It's about where you are in your life, where sometimes things don't work anymore. It's not like I keep going to them to make them work. It's like that no longer serves me. It was a point in my life.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I tried Mind Bloom and ketamine specifically that it put all of them together in a, like, almost like a box. And it was like the universe was handing it to me with a bow, because all the good things about the others were put into the experience. And what I mean by that is it has been by far the most influential part of my journey and helpful part, like you said, the most fundamental shifts.
Yeah.
And I'm so into science, and I geek out on research. So I've done a lot of the neuroplasticity, like research behind it, and how it's really connecting aspects in our brain that have been dormant or have been basically just completely shut down. And there's been times where I've been in my ketamine sessions and I'm like seeing the neuroplasticity, like I see it kind of connecting with the belief that is now transforming into a more loving, kind belief, rewriting how I see myself in the world, rewriting who I am. And a lot of it was around, the first time I did the sessions was about healing PTSD and grief. I was going through a lot of loss, a lot of really heavy loss in life. After the 6-week program, I was like, am I healed? Like, I saw the world differently. I was like, who am I?
I love,
feel
you guys
different.
can't see her right now, but the way you like backed up and looked around suspiciously, that's how I was too. It was like, I just got goosebumps. Like,
is this me?
Yeah.
I like this version of me, right? It's like, this person's awesome. She's been here all along, but I didn't know because it was piled with layers of other people's beliefs and projections. And I had shame that I was carrying around. It's gone. And so it's like shedding pieces of you that aren't really you, but you took on because we live in a world that tells you that's who you have to be. And so to me, it's just been so beautiful, and it's very healing and safe. I feel very safe and nurtured when I'm in the sessions. I would recommend it to anyone who's wanting to be open. I think sometimes when we hear psychedelic medicine, I have clients that are like, that's not me. I'm not going to be tripping out, like looking at dragons on the wall. It's not like that at all. It's actually working with your soul. Your soul.
Well, especially our age. Like I grew up, you're a little bit younger than me, but like you probably grew up like during the DARE. Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up in like the Just Say No era. And like, I remember even hearing about LSD in the 60s and Timothy Leary and like how it got a bad rap. And I didn't even know, like even the history of psychedelic research is fascinating. How there was a lot of money getting put into it until around like all the way up until like the 60s.
Yep.
And so now they've rebranded.
Fascinating too. Yep. That's it. Yeah.
It's helping veterans. And so it's like politically, it's both sides like it.
It's healing.
Yeah.
Mental health issues, and it's healing on a core level, and I think the neuroplasty of ketamine is really important, but also anytime we feel guided to go towards a certain type of therapy, I think that's important. It's our intuition talking to us and leading us to, maybe it's like your spirit helpers kind of planting seeds and carrots in front of you, right?
Yeah.
It's helped. To your point, it's been profound. Just really helping me see the world differently, but really the way the world really is. It's removed that lens, that filter of fear.
Was there anything specific that you saw? Like, did you see any like vision or visual or like scene or anything in any of your sessions that was profound?
I've done 12, 13. I'm doing the 16 program. And so
I've done 12.
So I've done 14. Now I have 2 left. Math's off, but each session is so different. I think the most profound thing is to understand what the intention, I'd be curious to hear from you too. The intention that you set drives the session.
Yeah.
I really recognize that. So it's really important to kind of put this, there's so many sessions that I've had. It's hard to think of just one. I want to give you an option or something, but I think the most profound thing is I'm a very visual person. And so in my sessions, I see visuals. And so, for example, there was a session where it was one of the earlier sessions. I was in, have you seen the movie Get Out? Or not Get Out, sorry, totally wrong
Inside
one. The movie with the emotions and the
Inside
mind.
Out. Yeah.
Inside Out.
Yeah.
People are listening. It's not Get Out. That's like a psychological thriller. In my session, I had different, it's like I was standing in a sandstorm, and the sand started blowing around me, and I was staying steady, and it was just flowing. And then all of a sudden there was like these creepy crawlers. And normally you'd be scared, but I stayed there, and I like to talk to the medicine. And why are you showing me this? And it said, this is the people around you who are taking from you. I had a lot of like parasitic relationships, a lot of people who were takers, not givers. I was surrounded by people who like were just really using me at that time in my life. So it was interesting because it was showing me staying steady and rising above. And then I saw it same in that movie. She's running around trying to say, we got to pull the levers, right? And the windstorm was my brain. I know this is, stay with me, everyone.
Yeah. It's psychedelic. Stay with us.
Yep. The windstorm came around and it was my brain, and I shut the windows. And that was me shutting it on all of the people, like basically going no contact. That's when I did that. And it was saying, no, you do not have access to my giving heart anymore. And it was profound though, because the session was, how can I love myself more? That was the intention.
Okay.
And it was literally telling me to shut out the people who don't see my value or who are taking. And then what happened is I saw the neuroplasticity in my brain connecting and healing that belief that you are worth your own love and attention. Stop giving it to other people at the expense of yourself. And since then, I literally have like feel more self-love and self-worth.
I love that so much. And that last part that you said is, I have found that really hard to explain to people. And the way I describe it is that I use the metaphor of believing in Santa Claus. I said, it's as if somebody brought me back in time and I believe in Santa Claus as a child, like that feeling. Yeah. That's how I feel about that. Because my biggest takeaway is that, so my daughter used to say, because my daughter used to dress like however she wanted, and she would put together these crazy outfits. And one day I told her, you have so much style. And she said, I am style. And I said, oh, but you have some. She's like, no, she corrected me again. She's like, I am style. That's how I look at love now. I don't have love. I am love. Yes. And like, I would listen to like experts like you and like Marianne Williamson and all these spiritual guides. And I would hear them say that, like that's the goal. And I'm like, I get it. And that sounds amazing, but I don't know what that's like. Yeah. Now I do. Now that's I know that huge. Whatever created me is like, to me, God, universe, it's all just love energy. I am created from, like, this makes me cry, like talking about it, like, because it's like, that's what I am. And it felt like, oh my God, that's it. Like, I did it. Like I got here, and no, this like didn't solve all of my problems, but I'll tell you what, it changed a lot. And like, one of the things was that I've told a couple different stories on the podcast. I don't think I've told this one yet, but I had one session where my intention always was, because I struggle so much with control, I decided my intention in every session would be, please show me, medicine, guides, angels, show me whatever lesson it is that I need to learn.
Oh, I love that.
Because I know if I try to control it, and then I have expectations, and it's just, I know me well enough. So that was always my intention.
How'd that go in that session?
Oh, so after like the first three, that was my intention for the rest of them. So in one particular session, I don't remember which one it was, but I was in the womb. I know.
Wow, amazing.
You would have told me.
Going back, right?
And I can hear voices and sense energy, and it was all good. But I asked the question, are you sure there's room for me? And I'm the youngest of 5.
Wow.
And I'm a lot younger than my half siblings. It felt, and I was crying during the session, and it felt as if even then I was nervous and afraid. Like I knew I was going to be a lot, like energetically, emotionally, personal, like all of it. And I was worried that that I was going to take up too much space for them. And I was like, oh my God, this has been my struggle for so long, to like feel accepted, to be able to not be worried, to show up fully and shine as bright. I mean, I wrote a fucking book called Make Some Noise, for fuck's sake. Like, that one hit me like a ton of bricks.
Wow. I am so thankful you're sharing this.
In a sense of, it gave me the ability to really point my face and my mind and my soul towards my inner child. That grew up feeling that way, but not knowing how to articulate it.
Yes.
Ever.
And this also, I'm almost crying here too, because I feel your heart. I see your heart. And I'm so thankful that you shared that, because it's so beautiful to recognize, and also the intelligence of the medicine, how it allows us to, like, it's not a cookie cutter thing. You put out the question, show me, tell me, teach me what you want me to know. And it took you right to the source of the root.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really powerful. And as you were talking, I couldn't help to say, just from friend to friend, Make Some Noise had a different title when you pitched it. And I feel like that's pretty important too, because that's kind of your little soul. Is there room for me having a title out in the world? You know, it's kind of cool just to think about that.
Yeah. And this isn't to say, like, I had a great childhood, you guys. Like, there was so much love, but it was energetic. It was energetic in the house.
Yeah.
And it was nothing my parents did or said or anything like that. But there was a lot. There was a lot of energy in that house with my parents. And so it's like, and it also allowed me to accept that I've always been that intuitive.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt like, am I too sensitive? Like, and felt like I was too sensitive. And I was like, no. I just was a spiritually connected child and didn't know it.
Special.
Yeah.
It's so special. And I think I've seen that too, just in our friendship from when I very first met you. And in 2012, when your book came out and we both were working on our first books, and the evolution of where we come, I've seen you step deeper into yourself and allow your spiritual gifts to just be, and your intuition, and say what you need to in our conversations. And it's a softness and a grace. And I just want to say, I honor you for that, because I see it in you, Andrea. And I'm thankful that you're allowing yourself to be who you've always been.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I wish I could get one of your warm hugs right now. Yeah. Thank you. Well, and I appreciate your vulnerability. Like, I know, you've moved around the world, and pet loss and significant other loss. And just, I know how hard that is to not only do it, but it's also, when you become almost like public property, that can have its own challenges. It's deeply wonderful on so many aspects, but it also has its own set of challenges. And you have done it with such grace. And I'm just honored to call you a friend. So thank you.
I feel that. It's interesting you say that, because I was talking to my cousin. I have the little blue check on my Instagram and stuff. And I know she's like, anytime you comment, my friends say something like, who's the celebrity? And I'm like, I'm not a celebrity. She's like, oh, you're famous. And I don't see myself that way. I think when we're public, that's been the hardest thing for me, I don't see myself that way at all, but I am that way. And so if people approach or people do that, I think there's something in that, in allowing ourselves to just be who we are, no matter what. And that's been a special gift that I think we can all give the world.
Yeah, it is 100%. Well, thank you so much for being here. Where do people go to find 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras? So I'm sure there's bonuses.
Yeah, well, the book is available everywhere. And I'm not sure when we're releasing the podcast. So the book is available March 11th, and you can pre-order.
It's coming out right around there. Yes.
Yeah, I have a masterclass that Andrea is actually part of for the pre-order campaign. And all you have to do is buy the book, go to the website, Radical Body Love with Shannon, and push that button there to get access to our almost 2-hour masterclass. Andrea shares a lot of insights on how to protect yourself from just how to set healthy boundaries and how to have healthier relationships. The book itself is a great book to just kind of go to bed with each night. Little rituals. It has 365 days worth of meditations, mantras, and nightly rituals. And you can find me on social media. Shannon Kaiser writes.
I love your Instagram account. I just want to say this real quick about your book, is that I have struggled really with having, I'm better now because it was a 2025 goal in terms of like nightly meditations. I'm like, oh my God, do Joe Dispenza's work. I'm going to do from this Calm app and this app. I love having like something tangible at the bedside table where it's like every night I know there's going to be another one for me to do for the next day and the next day.
One day at a time, quick 2 to 5 minute little activity. It's perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much. So what was the website again?
So Radical Body Love with Shannon.com, or you could go to my personal development website, playwiththeworld.com.
Okay. And these links will be in the show notes, everybody. So head on over there. Thank you so much for your time, listeners. I know that your time is valuable, and I'm so grateful that you choose to spend it with us. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes. AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
Are you overwhelmed by the things that get in the way of you doing what you want to do? Are you looking for ways to simplify life to better align with your values? Do you want to create space in your schedule so you have room for more of the good stuff? Play, joy, relationships, gratitude, and more? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I invite you to check out Edit Your Life, a podcast to help you edit the unnecessary from your life so you have more room to enjoy the awesome. Through episodes with me, Christine Coe, and a range of super smart, compassionate, and thoughtful guests, you'll come away with big picture insights and practical ways to declutter your home, schedule, and mental space without getting bogged down by perfection. I have always believed that small moments and actions matter tremendously. My goal is to help you find agency and space in your life through doable baby steps that will leave you feeling accomplished instead of overwhelmed. Check out Edit Your Life wherever you enjoy your podcasts.